Why people hate Type Soul. As you guys are aware, Type Soul 2 has officially came out a few days ago, and a lot of people so far have mixed reviews on it. So in today's video, I'll be talking about why people have these mixed reviews and why the majority of these reviews are complete hate. Toxic community. Now, I feel like everyone watching this video is pretty much already aware on how toxic the Type Soul community is. Now, when it comes to the community, it continues to progressively get more and more toxic from what I'm seeing. I feel like from the start of the game when they first release, it wasn't that bad, but I feel like now with the re-release of Type Soul 2, it has definitely gotten questionably more worse, to the point where the admins and developers had to step in to tell anyone that is using any of these toxic phrases like the and pretty much any other toxic or racist terms that they will probably get permanently banned from the game. Now, I'm actually not sure if it's temporarily banned or a permanent ban, but all I can confirm is that if you use any of these phrases and someone says, "I'm taking a screenshot of that," you're gonna be fucked. This issue also further escalates on the Discord server, with a lot of newcomers joining the Discord server and joining the game's community, realizing how toxic it can be, even with people complaining that the community is so toxic that they don't even want to play anymore and they will eventually leave the game and pretty much just stop playing as a whole and just not progressing at all. Which leads to my second claim on the negativity in this game: Quincy Hate. Now, Quincy Hate, it's definitely an interesting topic, because from what I can remember, from the moment Type Soul has officially released for the first time, Quincy's were just getting hate for existing at this point. Quincy's have been getting hate since the very beginning of this game, and I should know this personally since I was a Quincy since release for my main slot, and the amount of hate that Quincy's get on a day-to-day basis is absolutely abnormal. And I know a lot of people are going to say in the comments, well, Hollows get hate, Soul Reapers get hate. Not as much as Quincy's. You can spawn into the game, you can be the lowest grade. If a Soul Reaper sees you, or if an wrong car sees you, they're jumping you, respectfully. If they don't like seeing you. I even see it go so far that people are beginning to just normalize the Quincy hate on a day-to-day basis, and Soul Reapers and Hollows are pretty much every time they see a Quincy, they're either gonna jump you. Once they jump you, they might say a few words, you know what I'm saying, a few questionable words. But after that, they're most likely gonna grip you or infinite carry you until you actually leave the game, which I've seen happen so many times. Another example of the Quincy hate pretty much just evolving is definitely Wadden spawn point. Because of where the place that Quincy spawn, Soul Reapers and Hollows will just be waiting for Quincy's just to spawn, just to wait for you to get the blue aura off of you, and they will literally jump you until you leave the game. Although I would say this when it comes to the Quincy hate, even though Quincy's do get majority of the game's hate, the same hate still happens with Soul Reapers and Hollows, and it kind of seems to be like a pattern that if a Quincy gets hated on, eventually that Quincy will evolve into a grade 1 or a special grade 1 or an elite grade. It doesn't matter, but eventually once they get to that point and they have their shift and vault standings, pretty much they're unstoppable, and that's when they will go to KT, they'll probably try to find their way to Soul Society, probably try to go to Waco Mundo, and pretty much they'll just massacre everyone, which creates this sort of racist pattern that once that high level Quincy does that, that Soul Reaper, that low level Soul Reaper or high level Soul Reaper is eventually gonna keep evolving and then jump Quincy's, and the same thing with Hollows, and the pattern continues and continues until we eventually just have a whole community full of toxic racist people. Personally, when it comes to the toxicity in the game, I won't deny the fact that I was toxic towards a lot of people in game, but personally I feel like this toxicity is what makes majority of the Roblox anime community, especially if you've never been toxic while playing one of these games. I give you props, you know what I'm saying, you're definitely the chosen one, you're special. But personally, I have definitely been toxic. Have I said anything racist towards Hollows or Soul Reapers? Maybe, who knows, I don't know, there's no proof of it, but I never said anything bad. But I feel like that's the reason why a lot of people are starting to hate on Type Soul due to the community being too toxic. It's because when it comes to the majority of the kids that are in the Roblox anime community, they're not used to the toxicity that is in the game and that is on the Discord, which I feel like creates this sort of imbalance, which is why a lot of kids are complaining about Type Soul being so toxic. If you actually grew up playing majority of these Roblox anime games, especially the ones that are really gank slash PvP based, you are definitely specifically the ones being toxic. And to be honest with you, I grew up like that too. I'm just used to it at this point. This also leads to the next issue on why a lot of people are just really upset when it came to Type Soul's second release. This one I really don't understand, but since the Type Soul developers made progression, especially for Quincy's, much easier, like getting your shift, a lot of people have started to complain, saying that progression has barely changed for the game, which it has for literally everyone, and that it's been months and they practically haven't changed a single thing, when in reality, not everything is the same. I personally feel like when it comes to the grind, if you're really upset about Type Soul's grind, then you will not like Deepwoken at all. To be honest with you, the progression for Type Soul is decent at best. Now, it's not the worst, but it's not the best, obviously. But I still feel like anyone can do it. It might just take time. For an example, the shifts, they definitely made that a lot, like by far easier for Quincy's to get their shift due to the amount of ganking and jumping that happens in between you trying to get your shift. So I feel like now a lot of people should be able to obtain their shift just by themselves. They might get a little boost from Soul Reapers or the wrong cards, but majority like Menos or anything else, they should be perfectly fine on obtaining. Now I feel like the same thing could be said about Soul Reapers and Hollows, especially through their progression. The only hard thing about these progressions is that when you're in the middle of your progression, there could just be that one fool that will just attack you for absolutely no reason, just to ruin your own experience. Now I feel like this whole thing, that whole jumping mindset, can just carry on to almost every single race in this game. It happens to Soul Reapers when they're meditating, it happens to Hollows when they're trying to get their Vastalordes, and it happens to Quincy's when they're trying to get their Shrift. But either way, it happens to everyone. Next, moving on, we have the combat. This one is very confusing as well, but I've seen a majority of people complaining about the PvP, stating that it has barely changed since the release for this game, and that the parry system is very confusing to use. But if I'm being honest with you, majority of the people complaining about that, it's a skill issue. That, hey, it's the truth. Again, the same thing with the progression. The PvP at most is decent. It's not the best, it's not the worst. But I feel like people complaining about the parry system and people just overall mauling about the combat system just because they don't know how to land in M1. Now they're blaming the whole game as a whole. It's just a whole lot of excuses, and it's just a bunch of skill issues. If I'm being personally honest, I'm not even the best at PvP, and I know if I'm missing something or I messed up my combo, it's just my fault. It's not the game's fault. I believe that the Type Soul combat is pretty good, and as long as they keep updating it and keep improving it, and if they keep listening to the community on how to make the PvP much better, I don't feel like there will be any issues when it comes to the PvP later on the line. So yeah.